Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I'm so excited. I am going full forth and putting some more effort into my YouTube channel. And so I wanted to share a little bit more about me and my story. But first of all, when I say I want to go full force with my YouTube channel, I feel like I've really tried to I was going with the flow when I got inspired, I would share something, or when the Holy Spirit would press something upon me, I would, post something. But I really want to be more intentional because, that's what we have to do in life in order to be great and to achieve great things, right? Is to be intentional and come up with a plan. So my plan is to post and make a video once a week. We're doing this. We got this. So one of the things that you'll get with me is absolute authenticity. And what that means is that you'll get all of me, all of my greatness, but you'll also get a lot of not so good things because I'm not perfect. So that means that yes, I'm very consistent in my life in a lot of aspects, in a lot of ways, in a lot of spaces. But when it comes to certain things, because of certain fears or certain limitations or whatever, I may not be as consistent, right? You can see on my YouTube channel, and I'm not hiding it, that, there's like spread out times between the videos because I didn't post that often, right? I really felt pressured to, I guess to show up, right? And I didn't have it in me sometimes really to like, you have to get dressed up and you have to, put on some powder in your face and, put on some makeup or whatever in order to do a YouTube channel, right? And sometimes you don't, depending on what it is. And I just decided that I'm not. I did curl the hair today for this video, and I did throw on a little blazer today, okay? But sometimes you'll get me in real life, and that's really what I determined I want to do, especially with my social media, is really not fall into that trap. Because even when you're like, oh, I'm not falling into that trap, you tend to. You want your picture to look perfect, or you put a filter, and we don't even realize that we're doing it, right? Because I'm not that type of person. I can care less, how I look, but I noticed myself hesitating to post because I wanted to have a prettier space, and I don't have a pretty background right now, but I found a quiet corner to record, so I'm going to record. You know what I mean? So yeah, that whole thing just to say that you're getting all of me. So I'm excited. I am going to be posting about all of me as a wife, a mom, and everything that entails, and living for Jesus. And so that looks differently in terms of our leaps of faith, living by faith, and how the not so pretty things that come with that. And you're gonna get marriage, motherhood, and mental health. Because if you didn't know, I am a coach, a mental health coach. I was a therapist for a really long time, so I don't actively practice therapy right now. And I kind of made a move into mental health coaching, and I'll talk about that at some point, maybe in another video. So you'll get all of that. But a little bit about me. I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm married to my best friend. We've been together for 12 years and married for 10. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in this quarantine. That should have been a whole video, because trying to have a date night with 3 kids, yeah, it was an adventure. Nevertheless, it was perfect because we're really low-key people anyways, and you'll get to meet him soon. And my 3 little angels, they're great. They're great. My 3 kids, Grant, Grayson, and Gianna. So Grant will be 10 soon. Grayson will be 8 soon. And Gianna turned 9 months old yesterday. So yeah, our lives are pretty busy and full. We just moved to Atlanta, Georgia from a little town called Stoughton. Is it little? I don't know. A town called Stoughton. Most people say like Boston or whatever, but I'm very specific because we lived on the outside of Boston. Like we do now, we kind of live on the outside of Atlanta, but I'm just saying Atlanta. Whatever. We moved from Boston to Atlanta. Whew. Um, and yeah, we took a leap of faith because God told us to move. Um, he told us to move, and we were pretty established in Stoughton. We had moved from Roxbury to Stoughton when our children were smaller. And then, up until last year, we were getting to this place where we were stable, right? And so last year, sorry, not last year, 2018, let's say 2018, right? 2018 until mid 2019, we were in a place where we were really doing well. We were at our church that we had been at for over a decade. And, you know, we had our community, our families live in Massachusetts. The children were in a good school nearby, loved it. I was finally working at a place that I can't tell you how much I loved my job. I was working with college students. I was starting my consulting work like on the side, also working with college students and working at the program that I went to at Northeastern University. And my husband was working 10 minutes from home. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible, like how we were really living. Of course, when the grace ends somewhere, everything's not perfect. So I'm not saying it was perfect. We were finally established, but slowly the grace starts to leave from places. That means that that were easier now become harder, and you're like, wait, everything was perfect and now it's not. So slowly the grace started leaving towards the end of our season in Massachusetts, and you know, we prayed on it, and God really just told us to move. And so everything that we had acquired up until that point was because of God. Like, if I tell you how I got that job, how I got the consulting job at Northeastern University, how we got the home that we owned in Stoughton, all of it was because of God. And so when he said pack up and move, I mean, it wasn't that easy, right? Like, whatever. But I mean, it was very difficult, but he gave it to us, and we really had full-blown faith that he was going to meet us where he told us to go. And so we sold the house, and we sold all of our furniture, and you name it, left the jobs, and it's been absolutely incredible, and I'll definitely update you all on that on life in Atlanta. So yeah, so now we live here in Atlanta, and we're quarantined like everybody else. Well, technically, at this point, Atlanta has opened up, and so have some other states, but yeah, the AUBO just choose to still be quarantined. So we are quarantined and living this life right now. A little bit about my background. So I was born in Queens, New York. I am of Dominican descent, so both my parents are Dominican, and I was born in Queens, New York. When I lived in New York, I grew up with my maternal grandmother and my mother. My biological father left the picture at an early age, and I was then raised by my dad. When you hear me talking about my dad, I'm talking about my dad that raised me. And so, yeah, we were in New York for a period of time. And living in New York was pretty awesome. We lived in this place in Flushing where there were these two buildings, and we had family on every single floor on each side. And so we lived on the 5th floor. We had an aunt on the 4th floor, and an aunt on the 3rd floor, and an aunt on the 2nd floor, and just every floor. And the 1st floor was, my uncle lived there, my aunt and my uncle lived there, and it was like the meeting spot. It still is. They actually live there still. So living there was awesome. I had really great memories. But then when my grandmother passed, my mom decided to move to Lawrence. And so we moved to Lawrence with my dad. And my dad was already in Lawrence, so we decided to move to Lawrence to meet him there. And, growing up in Lawrence was interesting. Lawrence, Massachusetts, so this small little town, this small little community. And yeah, I experienced many struggles and hardships. I experienced hardships and struggles in New York as well, but not as many as I did in Lawrence, or felt like, because I spent obviously a huge portion of my life in Lawrence. But I also experienced so many great things. There's so many incredible people in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And yeah, it was just it was unique growing up in Lawrence. And if you're from Lawtown, you know. But so from basically my entire like preteen and teenage years, really my teenage years, I struggled with PTSD and severe depression. And it's because I had encountered so much difficulty and seen so much that a young child shouldn't see. And so you know, a lot of this I talk about in my book, From Survival Mode to Greatness. But I, you know, experiencing sexual abuse and just living in poverty and having a single parent home, because then my dad and my mom got divorced and he was still involved, but she was primarily a single parent. And so, you know, I started working at the age of 12. I remember working at a bakery, 12, 13. And we just had to make ends meet. And so, you know, school was a priority because my mom wanted it to be a priority. But when you're navigating being a child and all these different experiences and then having to work and then go to school, it was difficult, you know. And even when I went to high school, I went to a private high school. I actually went to a public school first. I went to the Greater Lawrence Tech. It's a vocational school, so you do 1 week academics, the other week you do a vocation of your choice. And so then when I applied to go to a private school, you know, I wasn't academically ready, so I had to repeat my year. So here I was, now I'm an older freshman, but then paying for private school, I had a lot of scholarships and things like that, but I had to pay for books and I had to pay for my uniform. And one of my brothers, I'm the youngest of 13, by the way, that's a story in itself. One of my brothers was really helpful in that. God rest his soul, he actually passed in 2010, a week before my wedding. He was a huge source of support and he really helped pay for these things, but I still had to work for other expenses. And so, you know, I'm going to school, then I get out and I was involved in activities and clubs, and then I would get out from there and then go to my job as a waitress at Friendly's, you know, and then work till like 11, 12 o'clock, whatever. I'm up doing work until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, those things built my character, right? I don't feel like those hardships are something I resent, obviously, because I cannot work absolutely everyone and anyone. There is no, like, I have a no excuses mentality, and it's because of my upbringing, you know. And I'm only sharing with you all like cliff notes and glimpses, but a lot of the things that I struggled with and worked through made me like the tough person that I am. And I'm the tough person because I have grit, I have determination, I have persistence, but I'm not tough like I don't have this cold heart. Or like, if you know me, I am sweet, I'm nice. Of course I had to work through that because I did have really this outer layer of thinking that I had to be tough and I kind of had to have an attitude and all these things. But now I am at the core who God predestined for me to be, which is like the super sweet person that's, you know, full of joy. And I could set a good boundary though, you know what I mean? Like, I am that person, and that was developed in real life. My computer's in front of me and my kid's friend is FaceTiming to play Fortnite. Yeah, that's real life. Anyways, so yeah, what was I saying? Pretty much, I am sweet, I'm kind, but I got tough skin. Okay. But yeah, so in my struggle, like, nobody could see some of the things that I struggled with. But yeah, so after high school, I went on to Northeastern University. I obtained a full ride. It was a whole program, not just a full scholarship. It was a full program that I really needed. And I was part of the first class, so that came with pressure. But it was an amazing opportunity. And I really feel like going to Northeastern was like this huge pivotal moment for me because I left my little town, right? And although it was to Boston, and people in Lawrence, they would and still go to Boston because it's only 30 minutes away. I wasn't allowed to go to Boston. I wasn't even allowed to go to the movies. My mom was so strict. Oh yeah, how can I forget? I won't tell you exactly. She had me in her 40s. I can't tell you her exact age because she will not be happy. But she had me in her 40s. So by the time my mom had me, she had 4 other children. And you know, you learn your lessons and you want to do better. Each time you have another child, as moms that may be watching, you know. And so my mom, she wanted to do better. And that means no games. Sin juego. I was like, okay. It was tough because I'm like, can I go to the movies? No, ¿para qué tú quieres ir para las movies? ¿A buscar qué? ¿Qué tú vas a buscar para las movies? I just want to see a movie with my friends. Get friends, ni que friends. Tú no necesitas friends. Yeah. You will hear a lot of Dulce, they call her Dulce, Mercedes, in her stories as, you know, she was navigating life trying to raise Anna, which must have been a handful. I'm sorry, mommy. I love you, ma. I really pray for her. Anyways, so yeah, by the time I went to Northeastern, it was like a whole new world because I really didn't experience Boston like that. So to me, it was like, oh, this big thing. And then there was a lot of challenges within being at an academically rigorous school, even though I had gone to a private school. But again, I don't really feel like I had the opportunity to apply myself and really show everything I had at my high school because I was working and all that. And my focus was a little off. I was also like, you know, I mean, I struggled with depression and PTSD, and so I numbed that by drinking excessively. So when I went to Northeastern, I still had a lot of those coping habits and a lot of, I guess, bad habits, you can say. And so I really, yeah, I'm trying to think about what part of my college experience do I want to include in my intro, right? Because I know, again, you'll hear more about life in college. I was a hot mess, you know. Academically, I was like doing what I had to do. Although I had to withdraw from chem. I was pre-med and I withdrew from chem because I almost failed. But you know, I did what I had to do and I was involved in clubs and everything like that. But I was a hot mess because I was still drinking and still doing all of this, and I really wanted to be liked, and I was all over the place. But I made it. Child, I made it. So I met my husband, my now husband. I met him, I believe it was junior year. So by that time I had many bad experiences with guys because I had a lot of daddy issues. And so I had bad experiences and I was like, yeah, I'm all set. I'm done. And then I met my husband and we met at a club. And man, listen, I gave him my real number, first of all. And you know how guys have that whole thing, and I won't say too much because I know when he comes on, he's gonna want to say it. But guys have that whole rule where you have to wait a little bit and then text. No, he texted me that same, he walked me to the car and I think he texted me a few minutes after. And I didn't see it because I had missed his message because I got a whole bunch of messages from my line sisters. And so I missed his. And so when I woke up the next morning and I saw his message, I was like, oh. And I was with my friend at my line sister's place. And I'm like, oh my God, he texted me or whatever. And so I texted him. He comes over to Northeastern's campus. And I was at Northeastern's campus for my line sister's birthday. But I was going back to Lawrence. It was like, I think it was May. Yeah, so I had left already. I had left campus. But was there only for, I think, 24, 48 hours. We hung out. We talked. Forget about it. We were like this from the moment we met. And yeah, that's again a whole story of its own. And you know, we partied and clubbed a lot and all this, and then at some point we really I started going to his church, and eventually something happened. We left his church and we went to another church, and we really found ourselves like changing together. We were hot messes, clubbing and drinking and just being crazy and wild, to growing together into really, you know, I got saved in 2009 and really wanted to live for Jesus. And we had to stop some of the wildness, right? We're still kind of hot messes. It's just that we give our hot mess to Jesus every day. Okay? Amen. Okay. But we're going to speak life. We're reformed hot messes, but we're imperfect. Okay. But yeah, you know, we found ourselves growing together and changing together. And if people knew us back then and they know us now, we're completely different people. And that's just because we're really trying our best to live for God. And I say that like that, to trying our best to live for God, because we're not perfect. Just because we're believers and we're Christians, like, we're not perfect. We're just human beings. Yeah. Really. We're imperfect people just trying to live for God. We're held to a different standard. We have the word of God, but again, I think that sometimes we set ourselves in a place like we are above, and we think that we come off as though we're better than other people. And that's really one of the things that I'm all about, debunking stuff. I'm about debunking every stereotype, because I'm just a girl in love with Jesus, loving people, and out here trying to live for him. You know what I mean? And so I don't like to be placed in a box. A lot of times we can do that. You know, you try to put a Dominican in the box, a black girl in a box, and try to put... I will not be in anybody's box. So that's really just all I'm trying to say as someone who's a believer, that there are standards and values that we have as Christians and believers, but, you know, we mess up. We mess up all the time, and we're not perfect. But yeah, then when I met my husband, married him, got saved, we had 2 children. By the time we had 2 children and I was in grad school, getting my master's in counseling psychology, to be a therapist, I really noticed all the things that I had dealt with, and I was able to name, like, oh, so I had PTSD and severe depression. I have. At that point, I still had. And I was like, oh my God, you know. And so I started seeing a therapist, and I started doing the work really in my own life. And I remember I went on this 60-day fast. And if you're going to fast, I'm not a medical professional, please seek help from your primary care doctor before you go on a fast. Okay. I went on a 60-day fast, and I really just gave it all to God. And I really was like, you have to do something. I cried out to God because I had 2 suicide attempts in my teenage years. And by the time I got married and had children, I remember a point where it wasn't like I was suicidal, but at that point I was really, the enemy really had convinced me that my family would be better off without me. And I really wanted to run away. I was just ready to pick up and go, because I was like, I suck so much that they would be better off without me. And so, you know, I fasted and I fasted and prayed, and I was like, God, you have to come through for me. You have to do something, because I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. And so, man, God met me in an incredible way during that time, during that season. And it wasn't like it was magic, right? Because you have to put in the work too. I had to walk in it and believe that he had healed me. And so I went to therapy, and I watched the videos, read the books, everything I had to do, held myself accountable, took responsibility, took ownership, because it was a huge portion of me that had accepted certain things and, you know, allowed myself to do certain things that I wasn't happy with, and nobody else was responsible for some of the things that I had to take responsibility for. So I really had to do that. You know, the abuse that happened and everything that happened that was done, you know, to me wasn't my fault. But then after that, I really had to come to terms with the things that I had accepted too. So, man, God healed me. I don't have not a symptom, not a trace of PTSD or severe depression. I really went full blown and into like diving into self-care and what that meant. And self-care, not only like spas and bubbles, but, you know, spas and like whatever else. There are some really soothing activities that you can do that are self-care, but really taking the time to get to know who God created me to be was the truest form of self-care, because I got to know the fact that I am a highly sensitive intro ambivert. I made up a word for it, and now I can't remember. An ambi-introvert, that's what it was. Because people are like, oh, you're an ambivert. And I'm like, yeah, kind of, but not really. I'm a huge introvert. I love reading books. I'd rather be by myself. I love people though. and you know, I can be out there and outgoing, but it's not my preference. And so getting to know that about myself and knowing that I have the gift of mercy, or the empath, some people may know it as the empath, that I take on people's emotions, it was like that, it was like light bulb, you know, and I'm able to better take care of myself. You know, there's certain things that I don't do in certain environments I don't go into, because I know how that impacts me. Even like talking on the phone, some people love talking on the phone. I don't like talking on the phone because it's a huge form of peopling, for different reasons too. I also like the connection of being face to face, but it's also, I don't like multitasking. So if I'm on the phone and I'm doing something else, you know, and all that, so I limit the amount of phone calls I take a day, because I really want to give my best to whomever I'm on the phone with. But also, like when I'm with my kids, you know, like some people can clean and manage and do all, I can, but I choose not to. I rather not. So yeah, so I was able to really just get to know me and get to the root of my issues. And if I'm completely honest, you know, I got to the root of my issues and all that, and I dealt with a lot, but there's still some residue. And that'll be interesting, because you guys will get to go on a journey with me, as I am a mental health coach and I help other women, and especially wives and moms, to be able to get to the root of things and, you know, deal with limiting beliefs and deal with negative thinking. And so I have that aspect of me. But then in real life, I am a woman on a quest to still work on myself and still deal with the residue of some of the challenges that I dealt with in my life. So you will get a behind the scenes of all of that. So that's going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. You're not going to want to miss what's coming. All right. I love y'all. And do the little bell thing so you can get a reminder. All right. I love y'all.